everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Hawk Off the Press. My name is Madison Hricik. I am the Iowa football beat reporter for the Gazette, and we are once again back with another Hawkeye assistant coach. This time we are bringing in defensive coordinator Phil Parker. Coach, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Madison. Appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed your summer. Obviously, the season's coming here quick.
I know we were talking about it earlier. I feel like the summer's just blown by. You just got back from vacation not too long ago, so I'm hoping you had just as much of an enjoyable summer as I have.
Yeah, you got to make sure that I know you traveled out east too, and it was good to get a little bit of freedom, get back to it. Sometimes you got to get away from the office a little bit and go back into it.
Yeah, well, as somebody who's been in this particular office for quite a while, you're 15th season upcoming as the defensive coordinator for the Hawkeyes. That's a long time. And one thing we know with Iowa football is that longevity is huge here. So let's start with the overarching question of what brings you back to this role year after year?
Well, I think the first thing that I always talk about when I first came here in 1999, it was the understanding of, from afar, people stayed here a long time. And I know when Kirk first came here, and that drew my attention, not only being, having known who he was and playing against him back in the early 80s and understanding what they stood for, kind of made me do. And so it made me look at the opportunity, and it all starts from the top with Coach Ferentz and the culture that he builds, and the respect that he gives all the players and all the coaches and everybody that works with the organization. It's just a great opportunity. He lets me do my job, and it's been very good for my family. I have two kids that went to school through grade school all the way up to college here. So I've been very blessed. But the opportunity just to coach young men here at Iowa has been a great pleasure, and happy to do it.
Mm-hmm. And when you have somebody like Ferentz and you can build this kind of relationship with, what is that relationship like with you guys? Maybe is it from my understanding, there's a lot of mutual respect here between the two of you, but you've known each other for a while as well. So this isn't just strictly a on the field relationship that you have, especially for how long you've been with this program.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you get to just like being married, I guess, you get to know your wife a little bit better. You get to know your boss a little bit better, understanding, they get to understand who you are. I know not everything's always perfect and that, but there's always ways to work through it. And I've been very blessed to be with, somebody like Coach, and how he leads and how he, just does things the right way, and been very blessed with it. And we all have our times and stuff, but we also know each other, and it's been very respectful, I think, on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when you look at the defense itself and just some of the I guess markers that you've reached throughout your career, Iowa's defense is ranking in the top 20 for scoring defense the last 11 seasons. The team's allowed fewer than 20 points per game in the last 10 seasons, which is the longest active streak in the country right now. And 50 of the 54 last football games dating back to 2021, this is the defense that's yielded 400 yards or less. So that's just one paragraph, by the way, of the bio of Iowa football's defense under Phil Parker. So there's a lot more that we could go through here, but just like looking at those numbers, I mean, you've worked with so many players who now are going on to the pros and have had successful careers in the NFL. But what about the scheme and the defensive mindset that you've created has helped yield these results that you've been working with?
Well, obviously, it comes down to the players and how they're buying into it. And that's one thing. It's definitely the way the players are playing. But I think it comes down to the establishment of, having the same foundation of what we believe in, defending the run. If you can stop the run, then you got a chance to, to win games. And I remember in 1999 when Coach Ferentz talked about, you got to be able to run the ball, and you got to be able to stop the run. And I think with our system here since '99, and since I took over, I think in 2012 or somewhere around there, um, I think the consistency within our staff. I got a great group of guys I work with. That they have a opportunity to give their opinions and do a great job. Seth Wallace, Kelvin Bell, Jay Neiman, those guys on defense, and then not along some of the guys, the analysts that are in there. Shane Velo, and my son Tyler's in there, and so it just going back, and you got just the consistency of them people being in the same room and seeing the same thing and knowing exactly what we want. And, there's got to be adjustments made about the way, but I think we've done that since, obviously since '99. And since I've been the defensive coordinator, there's been some adjustments, and, but everybody has opinions in there, and I want their opinions. And, obviously, the last call is, it's got to go on me, but you want their opinions. And I think the consistency within our room on the defensive unit has been excellent. And I think that's what kind of helps us a little bit on the defensive side.
You mentioned that part of your role as the coordinator is you have to make the final decision with a lot of when it comes to players when they play things like that. When that is part of your job description, you're also the safeties coach for this team. How have you been able to find your own way to be able to check in with other position groups, with other members of the defense that aren't in that safety group where you're interacting with them maybe more so day in day out than somebody on the defensive line or a linebacker?
Well, we sit there and we watch all the film together. We're always talking about guys. You got to trust the guys that you're with. If somebody's, Calvin and Jay, they do a great job with the defensive line, and they're hired to coach those guys. And same thing with Seth, with the linebackers, and me back there in the secondary. I think it's just I have a group of guys that help me out, and and we're all together, when we sit there and watch it, and everybody's talking about their players, so you have an opportunity in the film room to get it. But obviously, there's times on the field that you like to be more involved in all the three positions, but it's kind of hard, just I need to make sure sometimes you just look over and see what the other guys are doing, and make sure you have relationships with the players, and interact with them. I think that's the most important, to let them know that you care, and that we're just trying to make sure that they're doing their best that they can, and trying to drive it out of them.
And you think that's every decade of college athletics is the introduction to the transfer portal and NIL revenue sharing. What has it been like watching the program kind of figure out its own way that it's going to go about it while still trying to cultivate and maintain the relationships that this program has been known for?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation with all this stuff and with the portal and stuff, but you still want the right kids, and we still have time to make those decisions when you get a chance to meet them. You don't get the chance to meet, talk to them, sit in their homes and all that stuff as we used to. But I think it's driven by different things. You just got to find the right people, and when they come on campus or when they're visiting, or just make sure that they have the right, what does is it the right thing for us? And there's some guys that just they're looking for other things than what we're trying to do, and we're trying to keep it the old fashioned way. I don't know if it's old fashioned anymore, but it's just keep it simple, and just be respectful of what the game takes to do, and how to play it, and what you have to do to achieve your goals. And our job is to make sure that we push you guys and push the players, and you know, as hard as you can. But once again, some guys in different situations, that's not what they want. But I think it all starts from the top, though, with Coach Ferentz, and how we want to bring guys into our program that are going to fit our culture.
Mhm. And one last question I want to ask before we start delving into this year's team and things like that. I'm going to ask a question about last year's team. You had a number of players, 7 from football this year, get drafted into the NFL. A few more have gone on to sign contracts. We're going to be participating in training camp here in the NFL. Wanted to ask about a bunch of those seniors that were just drafted. TJ Hall, Max Llewellyn, bunch of these guys. have had opportunities to hear their name called back in April. Does that get old for you at all? Like, do you still have the same feeling every time you hear one of your players hear their name called, or is it just such a
Well, I
special
think
feeling?
Well, I think it's really good. It's like some of these kids that came in here, you see them as a true freshman when they come in here and see how much they developed until their senior year and the maturity and the things that they had to do to get to that spot. It's not easy to get to that spot, but the time and effort that they had put in and seen them grow in the 4 or 5 years that they've been here. And this kind of makes you sit there and this, boy, it makes you happy a little bit as far as like, do you remember? We always sit there and talk about it all the time. We'll be sitting there. Do you remember the first day he was here? And is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? But it's a really good feeling when somebody reaches that thing. But once you get in that league, it starts to become a little bit more competitive too. Just like all athletics, the higher you go up, the more competitive it gets. And hopefully, we gave them some tools to use on their way that they can manage in the NFL. And
Mhm.
I think it's been proven over the years.
Mhm. Do you get an opportunity? Do you reach out to the players after they've been drafted, or reach out to them once they've made their first active roster or anything like that, or do you kind of let them uh, say thank you, or it's a little bit of both?
Once you got to realize, they're going through a time and their period of everything's new with them. I like to, you congratulate them when you see them or give them a call, give them a text. But they got a life too now. That's a whole different industry. Some of them are married, some have kids. I mean, it's really hard and look at some guys, they're occupied. They don't have much time as, you would think. And I understand you see them from afar, and I don't need to be on the phone with them every day. But you know, you watch for them when they are watching. When they're playing games, you like to watch a little bit and see what they're doing, how they're doing. But I get a chance to see some of them. Once in a while they'll come back and have a golf tournament or something like that. We'll get to play in, and it's great to see them. And all the guys. It just it's a great opportunity to see them grow. And now they're having kids, and now they understand the way what we're trying to do, the discipline that you want to do, and now they're doing it for their kids.
Mhm. Yeah, that certainly makes sense. Well, let's turn the page to the 2026 season that, as you and I have both said, is rather quickly approaching us. Um, First things first, I know one of the things from spring football when we had a chance to talk to you before the spring practice was, the search for consistency is going to be a constant thing that this team is going to be searching for. But there is a lot of young and new faces that are stepping into new roles or fulfilling a new responsibility this season. What has that been like since the end of spring practices through summer workouts, working with a lot of these faces that are either new entirely to the program or going to be fighting for an opportunity to have a starting role or or a serious role throughout the season?
Yeah, we've been very blessed. Most of our guys have been with us. We had a lot of guys that came in from high school and a lot of guys come in from the portal that have had an opportunity. Like, one guy is Tyler Brown, is a guy that we took and he's really developed into a good leader and he's got a great chance to compete, and he's helped us out on the spot that I think it was valued that we needed him. And so we were very pleased in the back end with him. And up front, I think there's you know a guy that we picked up as a defensive end, maybe Kamari Brown. I think he's done a good job. He's a guy that's going to be coming up the ranks that might be able to help us. But everything's built on the guys that already been here. That the depth chart. You look in the back end. Deshaun Lee, he's been here for 3 or 4 years, and the experience and the knowledge that he has, and you got Watson, and then you got Wallace as a younger guy. He's helped on in the back end. I'm just talking about the back end, and then you look at Lutmer, the experience that he has and he brings around, and then Anthony Hawkins. He's done some good things for us in the back end. And then, you go up front, you got Hawthorne, his inside guy, and Luke Gaffney, he's definitely, and Will and Kennedy. You look at those guys up front inside as a tackle are really good. Then the outside, you look at Epinesa, a young kid that's growing. He still has a chance. That really help us out with Merriweather as another guy. So just the way the guys work, and you go once in a while, you'll step into the weight room over in the summer, or you go out and see them work out, and see the communication between all the guys, and it's really it's looking forward to it. They got a chance to get away from us a little bit, and we got a chance to get away from them, and then we got to come back together here in another week or so. So that's
Hmm.
going to be the time they need that break. You know,
Hmm.
it's like my wife sometimes. It's time to go back to work.
I definitely understand the break and how important kind of stepping away is. But I want to talk about a lot of the players that have been around this program for many years, who they wait their turn in line, they focus on their development, and then the time comes when it's their time. They've made it to the front of the line. They've worked for their spot at the front of the line to be able to get those reps. What about that has made your defense so special? Is it just the fact that they have been so committed to trusting your process?
Well, just look at the linebackers, because we didn't touch too much on them guys, but you look at Buffington, he's a younger guy, stepping up, and Montgomery, a kid that's been here, and you talking about a leadership and taking control of things, and you got Reese and you got DeLong. I mean, these linebacker groups that we have, we're so deep at that position that they can play multiple positions that we're very pleased with, and you know some of the guys that you sit there that at the linebacker depth of guys that can move in multiple places. So it's interesting to see um, how they've grown in such a short
Mhm,
period of time.
mhm. What about players like let's talk a little bit about Montgomery and Lutmer and Deshaun Lee, and Watson, who have a plethora of experience here on the field. How do you work with those guys to help kind of guide them with their leadership, but also kind of tell them like, hey, like this is your time to shine as well.
Oh, I guess whether it's their time to shine, it's their time to lead and take control, and they know what our expectations are, and so what we just try to deliver the message. Good teams are always coming from the leadership above, and as we always talk about, hey, your captains, your guys that have been here a while, you know exactly where we want. So when we're not around, you got to understand and try to make sure that you're holding everybody up to the standards that we want to. And I think they all have done a great job to it. And there's so many leaders in this whole group, and I've been very pleased as to see them grow. And uh, you know, as they do, as they come in as a freshman and they move up and they understand what has to be done, and they had great leaders that are now and ahead of them. You look at a Jack Campbell that was, a guy that was here, and now he's in the NFL. He was one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And now these guys already know the way that he worked, and they take that and they got to understand that this it takes work. You got to invest your time and effort.
Mhm, absolutely. And let's talk a little bit. I want to ask specifically about Montgomery here. Just with him stepping into that starting linebacker role halfway through the season last year, getting the headset, having to also get used to the communication set, and just seeing him step into the leadership role that he now is doing, and frankly doing a very good job. Every time I've talked to Montgomery, I've been extremely impressed with just the qualities that he's been able to kind of outwardly show away from the football field. But what is it like seeing a player like him step in when a team is needed in the middle of the year and then just kind of take the trajectory and run with it?
He's very special. I mean, obviously, there's some history in his background with, you know, his dad, playing here, his coaching, and so he already had that background. Probably when he was growing up, he understood what he had to do, and when he came into our program, he did the same thing. I mean, he was leading as a freshman coming in here, and just his personality is contagious, and he's always positive, and he works hard at it, and when you put the effort and the time that he does into it, and it's everybody. This not one, but I think he stands out, and he's a leader, definitely on our defense.
Mhm. And I guess, I mean, have you had conversations with him about what your expectations are for him or what his goals are in terms of where his leadership can grow this season, or even and maybe on the field, off the field leadership, things like that? Like, where have you seen or where have he expressed his desire to grow in 2026?
I just think, you don't get to see him all the time, but I think, Seth has probably set the standards a little bit with him when they have his meetings and the exit meetings before they take off and have a little bit of a break in summer. But all these guys, and just the way our whole program is, it's within their program. Is you see these guys, how do you lead? Do you know it? Take charge. Our expectations, they already know what our expectations are because of the years before. And when you get to a point where you're up there and you're the, starting linebacker and you're the one that has to make the calls and do all those decisions, a lot of people are counting on you. So you have to lead, and he's done a great job. I mean, it's been awesome. It's half the time, sometimes it's self-run, and you got it to a stage where they keep on doing it. And sometimes you just got to remind them that, hey guys, this is your team.
Mhm. It makes a ton of sense. We talked some about some leaders. We'll get back to some other leaders on the team here in a second, but I want to make sure I also ask about the freshmen that have just arrived on campus in January and some of them not even a month ago. What is it like seeing, the 17, 18-year-olds come to campus, get their first taste of college sports, get their first taste of what it's going to be like in the season? And do you have any first impression stories for us?
There's a couple guys, young guys that at least in the back end for me, that I've seen the progression of, Vidi has done a really good job coming in and constantly wants to be meeting, and you see the growth, and you've seen the growth in the spring game and how he practiced there, but his commitment, and for a young kid to see him do what he's doing right now, and I think he has at least an opportunity to, you know, make an impact for us somewhere, maybe on special teams, maybe playing a little bit. But I think he's done a good job as a young kid. Darian Jones has shown some spots in the back end. But there's other guys, I'm just talking about the back end a little bit. But
Hmm.
there's got to be growth. And, I think there's some other guys that we probably haven't heard of and might step up. And, you know, the progression from when we saw them in the spring, and then they go through a summer program, and then all of a sudden we got another, 3 or 4 weeks with them again, and that's when you see some of these guys really grow.
Hmm. When you say grow, are you looking for, as a coach, when you say you're looking for growth, are you looking for all, like the tangible improvements, seeing them improve their tackling, seeing them improve their explosiveness, their tracking, all of that, or is it sometimes the intangible qualities you look for in those moments as well?
Yeah, I think that it's, obviously, we do a good job in our strength and conditioning. They're getting faster and bigger, stronger, and all that. But you say just the way they carry themselves, how they keep, you know, keep organized, make sure they take care of their business, make sure you're on time for things. You got a meeting to be on time, and how do you carry yourself as a person, and how are you learning and understanding the game of football? So all those things that are intangibles and doesn't have nothing to do with athletic ability, as really you see them grow, they change. Kenny
Hmm.
Merriweather. I mean, he's just like from his freshman year to now, and you don't have to really say too much to him. This is all you got to do is look at him. He knows what he needs to do, and those are the good things about it when they sit there and they're making progress and growing as I guess as I call it,
Hmm.
maturity level, and taking things serious, and understanding that the time that they're here is very short.
Hmm.
It's only a couple years in their lifespan that they're going to be in college, and they have to make them big jumps and improvements quick.
Hmm. Absolutely. And as we start turning the page towards training camp, and you start looking at I think we're like 45 days from kickoff or something like that. I know most coaches don't have a countdown to the first game the way fans do, but where do you want to see the most progression in this defense, whether it's specifically with your room with the backs or just out like across the entire defense between now and September 5th?
Well, the biggest thing that I always we preach over here, be consistent in what we do and how you do it. And everything starts, I think, a little bit with effort. First of all, you got to know what you're supposed to be doing, and you got to make sure you give me good effort. And, that's toughness, also is bought into that thing. And, everybody has the athletic ability and everybody has different, levels of it. But what you really want to do is see the ones that take no athletic ability. Are you giving me the great effort? Do you understand what you're supposed to be doing? And are you doing it the best you can? And that's what I guess I'm looking forward to. And that's what I don't do anything about saying, hey, boy, you're really good athletic. You should be doing this. No, just to do the best you can, and make sure you give good effort, and communication's a big part of that, when everybody can be on the same page and try to execute. Football's a
Mhm,
simple game. You got to tackle the guy that has the ball, and you got to leverage it, and it all
mhm,
starts there.
mhm. Do you try to keep it as simple as that, as you tackle the person with the ball when it comes to just kind of breaking things down for this sport? There's a lot of nuances, obviously, but do you try to keep it that
Yeah,
simple mentality?
I try to. I guess I go back to Norm Parker's, hey, if they move their guys over here, you move your guys. And simple leverage. You just talk about leverage, and football is a leverage game, and you got to know where the ball is. And I just remember my dad before he passed. Uh, he goes, "What are you worried about? Just tackle the guy that has the ball." I said, "I got you, Dad. I understand that." But there's different responsibilities everybody has, but if you can teach guys, what their keys are, where their eyes should be, and the reaction, and it's simple, but everybody else has to understand that they're playing against good players on the other side. So whoever can do it the most efficient for the longest period of time, then usually they have the good teams. But
Mhm.
that's how
I
simple it
know,
is.
yeah. I know a lot of coaches that you just kind of look at the schedule and just kind of go week by week. We're playing this team on this day, but I do have to ask, just with college realignment, is it kind of fun to be able to say, oh, we get to play the Big Ten West again, and just kind of you're playing teams with a lot of rivalry history, that you don't always get to see line up that way anymore.
Yeah, I think them are always good. They have them rival games. I think it's always good. Now it's kind of going away. It's all coming about money, but hopefully you can keep those things intact a little bit as much as you can. But who knows where that's going to go here in the next couple of years? And I guess you just enjoy the guys you got to play, the teams you got to play this year. Just looking forward to it, and everybody don't look past the first game and go on to the next ones. But there's some good games on the schedule. Everybody's, I'm sure, excited about it, but you know. We still haven't been in the camp yet. It's a long ways, and you just don't know. You really don't even know who your starting lineup. You have an idea who your starting lineup is going to be, but there's a lot of time before that first game, and then obviously before the last game of the season. There's a lot of things that change, and
Mhm.
you just got to make sure that you have enough guys consistently understanding that they might have to chance to step in if somebody goes down. You
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. Well, and I like asking that question, when I can, just because it's a question that it's something that fans notice. Like, fans will quickly recognize, like, oh, we're playing Illinois this year. There's also Nebraska and all of these other teams, and the classic three rivalries for Iowa, the Iowa State, Minnesota, Nebraska. That's every year, but seeing the Big Ten West line up like that, that's not a common thing anymore. So it's fun to be able to ask that, even though I know you guys, a lot of coaches are not. You're
Yeah,
looking at the
it's
schedule as a whole and March, and that's it.
what you got to remember. Everybody on our schedule. I mean, they want to win too. And they're
Absolutely.
practicing, and they're so every time you go on the field, and there's some times that we've been on the field early when we were here, 99, 2000. There's some games that you thought you should have won, just because of, hey, you're in the Big Ten, or who's there, and you think that's, hey, you got to go out every day and play, and that's a good thing about it. I think our kids understand that.
Yeah. Well, and while we're talking about the defense, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about Lutmer this year, and what fans should expect out of him in 2026. He's already considered one of the best has the potential to be one of the best defensive players in the Big Ten this year. But you know the guy a lot more than the rest of the Big Ten, but does. But I mean, what can fans expect from Lutmer this year after the year he had?
Yeah, I think and you got to be real careful about expectations for kids. Also, I want him to go out and I think you just got to make sure to say, don't do too much. And I think he has uh, a lot of ability. He's very smart. He has a talent, and he's definitely the leader that you want back there. And he's done a great job to this point. But to set somewhere and say, hey, what's my expectation? My expectation is to make sure that he plays his best every game and lead like he's been leading, and don't put all that pressure on him, because it's not really no pressure if he's prepared. And that's what he's been doing for since last season. He's been doing the same thing. And I think there's, one guy doesn't win a game. One guy doesn't win a championship game. It's a team game, and to make sure that everybody together works together. And I think he does a great job of, being around the players and trying to make sure they do it. I don't want to sit there and say, hey, I expect him to do this or this or this. I expect him to play his best within our system. And I think there's things that'll come to him. And most of the time, that's what happens with good players. You just play your position, and things just seem to happen. And that's why I say it. That's why he does it. That's why he's been so good right now. He understands the game and sees it,
Hmm.
sees
And
it a
sometimes
lot
it
better
is.
than other people. And
Hmm.
you see
And
it.
sometimes, yeah,
What's
sometimes
that?
it truly is. I said sometimes it truly is that simple.
It's simple. And, when you start trying to do too many, I remember when guys try to make, hey, I'm going to try to make this play, or I'm going to make this play. And then all of a sudden it costs you, so all you got to do is eventually let the play come to you. Make the plays that
Mhm.
you're responsible for. Take care of your responsibility on defense. And then if you could add a little bit more to somebody else to help them out, then that's usually how it goes. But when you're trying to sit there and say, hey, I'm going to make this play, or that usually doesn't happen. You know,
Mhm.
the good ones understand that, and they go through their progression, what they have to, and that's when they become really good players.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, with training camp so close, I mean, is there an element of training camp you look forward to every year? Is it the first time the players put on pads? Is it just being around the team? Is it the meetings you get to have with the rest of the coaches? Like what about training camp is, I guess, your favorite part of it?
Well, it's training camp is different than what it used to be. You're talking 20 years ago when we used to have tour days and actually padded practice for twice a day, and so things are different, and it's streamlined, and it's just get the time to get back with them, get them fresh, and get them you know, seeing each other. I think the best part of it is probably the first couple of days, is trying to get them back in the swing of things, and just being with them and being part of the team. I think the beginning of it is, and then obviously towards the end, and the longer you go into the camp situation, then it becomes, hey, we definitely are getting looking forward to playing a game, and I think that's always nice too. There's the week before, game week.
Mhm. And say when it finally feels you finally feel the energy and
Yeah,
you're ready to go out and coach for sure.
yeah, yeah.
So I want to ask this as well. I know a lot of coaches, they like to be down on the field. Most coordinators usually will be down on the field unless there's a reason for them to be up in the press box. Is there a reason that you have always wanted to be on the field? Was that something that was your choice? Was that a just a general choice that Coach Ferentz had preferred you to be on the field? But do you like being on the field during games, or and why do you like being there?
Uh, it's very hard. I did it one time. I think my first year, I was up in the box, and I had a disconnection. It was like watching ants move, on the field. And and then there's another thing is, you just never got the chance to see the kids. Is you can look in somebody's eyes and tell them where they're at and how they're doing, and where they're at in their mind. But I think it's more beneficial. I get the feel of the game a little bit more when I'm down on the field. I get to see
Mhm.
it, anticipate it, help our players and within that as much as you can. But to me, I like being on with it. It's nothing to do with anything else, but be able to give information to our players and to make sure that I know where our players are when they're coming on and off the field and understanding that, just to get the feel of the
Mhm.
game. I think it's a lot easier to do it when you're standing there and seeing it. Now, there's a lot of
Mhm.
distractions on the sideline too. There's a lot of people walking, and as long as they stay back, and especially in Kinnick Stadium, it's hard. But I just feel more comfortable. I get better feel for the game than I do sitting in a box. I mean, if I'm going to do that, I could stay home and I can call the plays from my off of Zoom, right? I mean, that's what it's going to come down to, right? If
Mhm.
I didn't have to do that, don't have to fight the traffic or anything like that. I can just call from my living room. But no, but really, be serious about it. I mean, just I like being on the field and seeing it and have a feel for the game,
Mhm. No,
and
certainly.
help the
I
players.
can
Yeah,
absolutely. I absolutely understand that. It's a totally different vibe sitting in the press box versus when you're down on the field, or if you're even up high in the stands versus right along the
yeah.
sideline. So I certainly understand that perspective. I tell people all the time, one of the things I always make sure to have with me is binoculars when I'm up in the press box, because sometimes it's harder to figure out,
You
especially
can't
on the
see.
sideline. Exactly. And so I don't blame you for
Yeah,
having that desire to be down on the field for your job at
yeah,
all.
yeah. I did it one year and that was enough. I just, and I think I did it when I was at Toledo too. And I just, you lose you just might as well stay home and do it. Yeah,
Mhm.
save you some
I
gas money.
I can definitely understand that, coach. Well, one final question I have for you.
Yeah.
With all of the teams and all of the defenses you've worked with, um, as we get ready for training camp, in the next week and a half, what is it like seeing this team start to gel together from a defensive standpoint and seeing the bond and get used to working with one another and spending time together before things really ramp up for camp?
I think it's, you know, I've been away from the guys a little bit. The summer, you don't see them as much every day as we used to. So I'm really looking forward to, you know, I'll go back in there when they have some workouts in there. Then, we might have one later on the night and just watch them and see them move around. And, it's been good to, I'm itching to get back. It's like you haven't seen them. Got a call yesterday from Deshaun Lee. Hey, coach is checking up on you, see how you're doing. And, them kids know, they understand it, but you need the space. And I'm looking forward to getting back, you know.
Mhm. I certainly don't blame you. Like I said, I know I certainly have the itch to start getting ready for football season. So I don't blame the players and I don't blame you all if you all are feeling the same way for sure.
Yes.
Well, coach,
So
I really
it's
appreciate the
been good.
time. I apologize for the technical issues, but I do
No,
greatly appreciate you
it was,
taking the time today.
yeah, it was good. I appreciate
Yeah.
it and hope to see you soon sometime down in Iowa City.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. If you guys like this content, there is a new Hawk Off the Press episode every single week. There's also a free newsletter with the exact same name that you can sign up for at thegazette.com that has all of the Iowa athletics information that you want that comes out every Tuesday and Friday. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.